Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a deeply moving story straight out of New York. We'll be looking at a narrative that brilliantly shows us how emotional intelligence, sheer grit, and above all, unwavering gratitude are actually the ultimate keys to real business success.
So let's kick things off with a pretty massive question. Can true love and sheer hard work actually change your destiny? It really sits at the very heart of today's analysis. Because, we so often think of business success purely in terms of spreadsheets and venture capital, right? But this story, it completely challenges that idea. All right, Chapter 1, the beginning of a big dream. Ordinary lives, extraordinary vision.
Picture this. We've got Daniel and Sophia, a married couple living paycheck to paycheck in the endless hustle of New York City. And they had this incredibly stark duality in how they viewed their struggle. Daniel was pretty pessimistic. He was just trying to survive, basically resigned to his low-paying job. But Sophia? She was wired differently. While Daniel just saw a dead end, she was an endless optimist. She was actively spotting this huge, glaring gap in the market. She realized small local businesses desperately needed digital marketing advice, and she wanted to provide it.
And her mindset was anchored by this one beautiful philosophy. She'd tell him, Daniel, whatever the circumstances, we should never give up on our dreams. Even when Daniel was just terrified about their lack of money and paralyzed by the fear of failure, Sophia held firm. She deeply believed that if you don't even try, well, failure is guaranteed.
Which brings us right to our next chapter, the journey of struggle and success. It was time to take the leap. And guys, this leap was terrifying. Just imagine the stark reality here. Literally zero capital, a tiny, cramped rented room, no major clients for months. Sophia spent these entirely sleepless nights working her heart out, only to have people continually refuse to trust her new company. And yeah, those nights often ended in just tears of sheer frustration. It's a heavy, crushing weight that pretty much every true entrepreneur has felt at some point.
But here's the thing, she absolutely refused to quit. And slowly, the momentum actually started to shift. From day one in that small room, pushing through months of agonizing tears, she finally hit year one, earning her very first client's genuine praise. And man, that praise snowballed. By year 5, the transformation is just meteoric. She goes from a struggling, stressed-out freelancer to a multi-million-dollar CEO.
We are talking thousands of employees now working under Sophia's leadership. That tiny, one-room operation became an absolute empire. It brought massive scale, sudden media attention, constant interviews. She was suddenly thrust right into the global limelight.
But of course, success brings its own shadows. Chapter 3, the real test after success, navigating the top.
You know how it goes, right? You make it big, and suddenly everyone has an opinion on who you should be. Sophia faced intense pressure from within her very own company. Some of her top corporate executives literally pulled her aside and advised her to distance herself from her old friends. They essentially wanted her to abandon her roots to fit this polished, elite, international CEO image.
Her response? Completely uncompromising. She told them, I can never forget the people who stood by me during my days of struggle. She rejected that corporate elitism right on the spot. She knew exactly who had her back when the rest of the world was ignoring her.
And this is what I absolutely love about her. The contrast in her daily life is wild. On one hand, you have this powerhouse commanding a multi-million-dollar international enterprise, but on the other, she comes home at night to find Daniel cooking dinner, just like he always did. She actually broke down in tears one evening, confessing to him that while she now had everything money could buy, his unwavering support, back when she had literally nothing, was still her most valuable asset.
And that mindset naturally leads into our next phase, the joy of sharing success. A totally radical corporate move.
So, months later, she does something that literally sends shockwaves through the media. In an unprecedented move that totally disrupted the usual corporate playbook, Sophia transferred a significant portion of her billion-dollar company's shares directly to her employees. She wanted to tangibly, immediately improve their lives. The public was completely stunned. When reporters asked her, probably with their jaws on the floor, why she'd give away so much wealth, her answer was incredibly simple. Success is never achieved alone. My team's contribution is equal to mine. It's just a profoundly powerful lesson in corporate humility. That is what empowering leadership actually looks like.
Which brings us to our final and honestly most emotional chapter. connection to roots and gratitude, returning to the beginning.
So, despite all the wealth and global fame, Sophia takes a trip back to her old, impoverished neighborhood. And while she's walking those streets, she finds an elderly woman. Now, this was someone who had helped Sophia numerous times back when she was living in deep poverty. But now, this incredibly kind woman was living in utter destitution. And without missing a beat, Sophia steps in. She immediately takes full financial and medical responsibility for her. Housing, food, healthcare, the whole shebang. It is just a breathtaking act of humanity, reaching back to rescue the very person who showed her kindness when times were darkest.
The woman is just completely overwhelmed. Through tears, she looks at her and says, "Daughter, even after becoming such a big CEO, you didn't forget me." You can just feel the raw emotion there. It strips away all the corporate titles, all the millions of dollars, and leaves just two human beings connected by pure compassion.
And Sophia's response? It hits the nail right on the head. She says, forgetting the people who support you in difficult times is the biggest poverty. That right there, that is the central defining moral of this entire explainer. Because no matter how many zeros are in your bank account, if you lose your gratitude, you are truly impoverished.
Okay, let's bring it all together. 3 important life lessons. Applying the wisdom.
Here's the actual blueprint we can take away from all this. Step 1. Dream big. Never ever fear having a massive vision no matter what your current circumstances look like. Step 2. Hard work. Patience and grit aren't optional. They're absolutely mandatory. You have to push through those dark nights. And finally, step 3. Gratitude. Never forget the people who held you up during your hardest times, because lifting others as you climb, that is the true mark of wealth. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final question to really chew on. Who will you never forget on your journey to success? Take a second to reflect on your own support systems, your own Daniels, your own kind neighbors. Because as Sophia proved, recognizing them is the most powerful measure of success you'll ever achieve. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this source material and keep building those dreams.